Good to see you all back.
Hello.
So with August, there's 2 weeks of August, and the project got in mind for this month is seascapes and waves. So that was a request. I did something on waves and seascapes over the year. This particular project, I think I'll do it over 3 weeks because 2 is going to be a bit too quick. There's quite, I think September's fairly long, so break the projects up a little bit. So I'll make it a 3-week project. What I thought I'd do today is revise gridding images, and that could be the basis of then underpainting. So I may go on to the underpainting, but it's particularly gridding up I wanted to sort of revise. So it's something that I tend to just go through each year. Some people won't have come across this approach, and other people it'll be just revision. Might hopefully be useful for you. So the idea of gridding is to be able to work from a smaller image onto a bigger picture. So it could be a drawing, it could be a sketch, it could be a photograph. This technique artists have used for at least 500 years. If you look at some of the artists like Leonardo sketchbooks, there'll be like grid lines on them, and then he's then blown them up into a bigger drawing, bigger painting. So in terms of the image I thought I'd use, so these were paintings I did earlier in the year, very quickly in Wales. It was a very, very windy day. There's a lot of grit blown into these. This one I actually sort of get the palette knife and take a layer of sand off the top of it. But there was paint underneath still, fortunately, once it dried. This one, the grit just got mixed in with it. But I particularly like this view, and I thought I'd use this as the basis of the demo. So it is pretty much here. This photo though was taken from slightly further back from where I was standing when I painted that one. So this rock here is that rock there. But I was really taking that from the car park and then I zoomed in. So I thought I'd use that. And it's really tweaking the composition. I quite like the idea of having a bit more sea in it. So that's the reason I changed it a little bit. And I made it a wider composition, so quite often I'll go onto the computer and I'll crop them, maybe tweak the colours and the tones and maybe the contrast a little bit. So it's very easy to do, just on, I don't have any particular Flash software or anything, but you can do all that on the Windows software. So that's the image I'm going to use. In terms of gridding it up, what I would then do, this is just on a bit of ordinary paper, so it's easy enough to fold it. But if you've got photographs that you don't want to draw on, and ideally, don't draw on these, you could put this in like a plastic sleeve and then do a grid over the sleeve. So that's another way you could do that. So let's see if we've got one of those. I had one to hand earlier. I'll find one of those in a minute. And what you could do, instead of what I've done on this one is drawn the grid directly on the photograph, so I did this morning. But what you could do instead is just cut a piece of scrap paper the same size as the image. You can make the grid on the scrap paper and then transfer it over. So that's an easy way. To get the grid in the first place, so that's what I'm going to be working on. First of all, the important thing, and I've already sort of done this demo, so you can see it already, but I'll go over the steps. The first thing is to get the shape the same. So I'm just using this bit of canvas that's tacked on there. If I just align that with my border, that's going to quite stretch. And then what you then need to do is get a straight edge between these two corners. So I've got a few of these little bits of Venetian blind that are handy, make handy straight edges. So if I line that up that corner and that corner, and then just carry that on. That point at which it meets the other bit of the border will give me the right shape. Yeah, so basically it's going to be the same proportion. So the ratio of that side to that side will be the same as that to that. So it's a nice easy way to create that. You could do it by measuring it and just working out the proportions. That's another way to do it if you want to do that. Just do it all with maths. But if you didn't want to do the maths, you just want an easy way to do it. Just folding bits of paper and bits of stick That's a nice way. So basically, any of these rectangles, or any rectangle you draw within that diagonal will be the same proportions. So it's just a bit of geometry, it's just a way of working it out. So I've taken it to that edge, but I could have made it there or there. Yeah, just nice, easy way. So there's some straight edges there, if anybody wants to take that. So the next stage is to create your grid, which obviously I've done that already. And what I've done here to create that is I've got rid of the border. You could either cut the border off or just fold it over. So in this case, I've just folded it over. And then just literally fold the image or fold a bit of scrap paper, fold it into four that way, and then unfold it, mark where the folds are on both ends, and then do the same this way. Just fold that into quarters again. If you wanted more squares, if you had a very detailed image, you could then fold that into eighths as well. Or just get a little bit of paper, just fold one corner, measure that bit, and then just take that across. So you could have more squares if you wanted. That will give you a grid. Just make a mark on all the folds, and then you're just literally drawing that across. So that's how you get a grid on an image or a piece of scrap paper. You could then transfer that onto one of these. I've got one three. I'll just this one. Yeah, you could always use one of these bits of plastic, and instead of putting the grid on the photo, one of the students this morning just used a bit of acrylic paint and just painted a grid on the plastic like that. So that's an easy way to do it. I've usually got a permanent marker, and they will stay on plastic, but I haven't got one with me today. But a bit of acrylic paint or a permanent marker or acrylic pen would do it. So that's a good way. If you paid out for a nice photo, you don't want to ruin it by putting a grid on. That's a nice way of doing it. So that's that bit. To get the grid on either your watercolour paper or your bit of canvas or your board or whatever you're using, what I do is I get some strips of paper, and I get one for the width. So cut that was a longer strip. I'll just cut that to length. There. This one I cut for the height, and then it's just the same process again. Fold these into four, both of them, then unfold them, mark the folds, put that along there, transfer it at the bottom, do the same at the top, transfer at the top, and then join the lines up, and then you do the same with a narrow one. So it's a really easy way of making a grid. And I think I worked this out for myself, maybe when I was at art school, just as a way of, I had some photos, I wanted to make them into a big painting, and it's a nice simple way of creating a grid. You can do it all with maths. You can do like inch squares here and inch squares on something else. So there are other ways of doing it. This, for me, has always been a nice, easy way. Yeah. So if any of you want to have a go at that, I'm just using bits of scrap paper, and got the straight edges there. I should have a few pairs of scissors here. Yeah, I should have 3 pairs of these, and that's all you need really, some pencils. So if you fancy having a go, you've never tried that before, it's a good idea to do it now, before it goes out of your mind how to go about it. It's very easy to forget. It's quite simple, but quite easy to forget. So that's that. When it comes to transferring your image, one bit of advice that I came across in drawing book is to, rather than do it that way up, do it that way up. Whoops. Right, let's go back to that. Yeah, try it upside down, and that way you're focusing in more on the shapes of things. You're not getting caught up too much on little. Thinking, I'm drawing a tree or I'm drawing a wave, it just gets you to concentrate more on the abstract shapes. So in this case, I've kind of worked my way across here. Just got this one to work in now, so I'm kind of over here. Now I'm just using a pastel pencil, quite a light colour, light tone. You do have to be a bit careful. Mick was saying how sometimes the colours get mixed up with the paint, so that's a bit of a nuisance if it does that. So you kind of need to pick something that's, this is a pale green, that's going to mix in with that, right? I think I wouldn't particularly want to use red or yellow for something like that, because I think it would stand out too much. But alternatively, you could just use thin paint. I've got some acrylic here and some water. And to be honest, more often than not, I will just use the paint. So it just depends. Again, I wouldn't use anything too dark. I've got these out this morning, they start to dry. Just make it a pale grey, that would be alright. And just using the edge. So I'm thinking of this painting as being an oil painting or an acrylic painting. So it could be, so that's coming about halfway across there, so I need to end about there. So just some sort of thin lines like that. Just in this case, just using a square brush, but you could use anything that feels convenient. If I wanted more intricate shapes, I could go down to a little tiny, some sort of round brush. That would work just as well. But it's just getting the main shapes on. That will dry. I mean, the advantage of that is, if I've got more paint over the top, it's not going to pick up that paint now. Once that's dried, it's a little bit more difficult to shift if I make a mistake with the pastel. That will wipe out very easily. But either is fine. That's fine. And then probably once I got to that stage, you could do some of the painting upside down if you want to. It's not something I generally do, but working from a photograph, I could do that. I don't very often work on a white canvas, so I quite like to just kind of get rid of the white of the canvas a little bit. So I've just got a couple of colours out here, a brown and a blue, and just a little bit of yellow and some white. But it might be a good time to just start getting some sort of background in as thin colour. This is acrylic paint, but I probably would want to use oil paint for the final layers. But acrylic can be quite nice for underpainting. I think I probably prefer a slightly bigger brush as well, just to get some paint on a bit quicker.
So oil can go over acrylic quite easily, can it?
Yeah. Once it's dry, you don't really want to do acrylic over oils, but oils over acrylic is fine. Yeah. Most of these are primes with some sort of acrylic primer. So you're effectively, if you've got oils, you're effectively going over an acrylic anyway, unless you've got an oil-based primer. But yeah, that's probably how it works. Perhaps just it doesn't have to be too much detail at this stage. It's just almost like sort of blocks of colour. That's perhaps a little bit dark, just a tiny bit white in that. And acrylics is quite good for this stage actually. If you want to do a painting, you want to get your underpainting in and then go on to the next stage, perhaps using oils, this is quite a nice way of just getting the colours, getting something down and getting rid of the white of the canvas. If you're using white canvas or white board, it's very difficult to judge the tones because you're painting against white, and as soon as you get all this covered, it will look quite different. So it's quite a good idea to just get almost like a rough, slightly out of focus looking background colours in. So down here would have the sea colours. They can be a little bit bluer than that. Something like that. And it doesn't matter if you do this upside down or the right way up really, but it just gives you an idea of where the lights are, where the darks are going to be. Don't get into too much detail too quickly. You'll find that once you do get something in the background, sometimes it's quite nice for these colours to show through the layers. If you've got a nice bit of background colour, perhaps little bits of that popping through can create more lively painting. So that's something I try and use if I can do. Okay. There's different ways to do acrylic paintings, oil paintings. This is like a layered approach. These ones I did on site, these were done, as I say, very quickly. And the paint was literally, the colour is just mix it and put it on. So it does have a slightly different look. But painting outdoors, you don't always have so much time. Whereas in the studio like we are today, you can just slowly, carefully build up an image. Any questions? Okay, right.
Hiya.